Hi, this is Catherine. We're here at the Tag Contributor Strategy kiosk, and the Tag Contributor Strategy is basically a group that helps maintainers help other maintainers. So we really are trying to build a cross-project community to help each other, learn from each other, and just making sure that CNCF projects are successful. Anything you would like to add?
Yeah, and we do that primarily through resources and templates. So we have loads of how-to guides that CNCF projects can use to help improve their projects. We provide templates for things like governance, contributing guides, security policies, things like that. So we try to provide things that help maintainers and help CNCF projects be successful.
Thank you very much for coming over to the Cilium booth. It's been kind of a crazy year since we were, I guess, last talking. The Cilium project is just growing and growing and growing. And yeah, it's fantastic to see it move basically from a CNI from where it is, predominantly being used now, to growing into just a variety of other areas. Observability with Hubble, start to bring meshes on top of it. So service mesh, the ambient service mesh, so kind of getting rid of all the sidecars, and now kind of Cilium mesh as well. So starting to bring together all of your clusters into kind of one big, easy to manage cluster, simplifying all of your networking. And yeah, I mean, I've had 3 days of solid back-to-back eBPF questions. A load of people are super excited about how they use that, and we're just starting to see more and more use cases of eBPF moving forward. So yeah, thank you.
All right, sweet. Yeah, so we've got a release that's coming out on Tuesday, actually. It's the V1.12 release, and so there's a couple of features in there that people have been waiting for a while, that there's a lot of demand for. So the first one, is probably the most popular one, is going to be observe-only resources. So the concept there is that, you may have some resources out in the cloud, maybe they're managed by other tools, Terraform, CloudFormation, whatever it may be, but you still want to bring it into the Crossplane control plane and then be able to reference values from it, or, use it in other ways. So you can import that in, and then, Crossplane won't do any write operations, it won't delete it, it won't update anything. You can just use it as like a read-only set of resources there. So that's one thing. Another one that's probably kind of interesting too is that people have definitely had problems writing compositions in Crossplane, and so we've written a validation mechanism for composition. So when you submit your composition to the control plane, we'll do a whole bunch of validation to make sure that the schema is well formed, that you're just trying to patch things that actually exist, and so we're doing a nice little shift left of making sure that the quality of your compositions, that you learn that up front. So it's improving the developer experience. And then the other thing that we're working on really hard right now is we know we have problems with the number of CRDs that are installed in Crossplane, and with all the rich provider ecosystem. So we are embarking on a proposal here that will not be in 1.12, but will be coming along not too long after that, to basically allow you to install the resources that are important to you, as opposed to the entire ecosystem of CRDs. So your control plane will be more performant, a little happier, a little healthier, and you'll be able to deal with exactly only what you want to be dealing with. And then there's lots of opportunities to start contributing as well. We ran a Contrib Fest session this week here at KubeCon, which was really fun, and there should be, I hope, some artifacts and recordings that come out of that. But basically, just coming to the Crossplane repository, and if I start finding issues there and docs things and feedback and everything, we have a rich contributing guide in the contributing folder, and we're always happy to start building some relationships and have new contributors. Awesome.
Hey folks, I'm Stefan. I'm a Flux maintainer, and I'm here at KubeCon with some great Flux news. We have released Flux version 2 release candidate 1, which promotes the Flux APIs to GA, and we encourage everyone to upgrade to the release candidate. Please test it out and let us know how it went. We are also working on getting Flux more into open container initiative. We are making Flux able to synchronize from container registries, so you have this unified storage, and instead of Flux going to the Git repo, you can use Flux in your CI pipelines. You have a Flux push command, you push your artifacts there, and Flux can synchronize the whole cluster from a single source of truth, which is the container registry, where your apps images are as well. So we are trying to move Flux into a space where OCI artifacts contain your app configuration, how you deploy it, container images, where exactly is that binary, and also policy, security, and so on, right? And this new custom resource is called OCI repository in the Flux API, and you can also configure their verification of artifacts using cosign and so on. So yeah, please try out the new OCI feature.
I hear there's a UI.
Yes, so Weaveworks has this product called with GitOps, and they have an open source version of it that you can deploy in your clusters, and it offers a full-blown UI for Flux where you can monitor Flux, see the Flux events, how you configure it. It also shows you how the rollout is doing, if pods are failing and so on. So it's a great tool to not only get a glimpse of how you configure Flux and how it's running on your cluster, but you can also see there how your workloads are deployed and their status. Another project in the Flux ecosystem is called the Terraform controller for Flux. It's an open source controller made by Weaveworks, so you can now do GitOps for Terraform in the same way you work with Kubernetes. The idea here is that we want to bring Flux operational model beyond Kubernetes itself. So let's say your application needs an RDS database or an S3 bucket and so on, external services to your cluster. You can now, in your app definition for Flux, you can bundle Terraform scripts along with Kubernetes manifests, and you can define a dependency between them. So Flux will, let's say, first will create a database, then it will spin up the application and connect the application to that database. So you can have like this holistic way of deploying all things. And lastly, Amazon AWS has launched here at KubeCon a cloud formation controller for Flux. It's very similar in spirit to the Terraform controller, but it's, you know, you write CloudFormation, you push CloudFormation to your Git repo, then Flux will create all the AWS resources based on those definitions. So yeah, we are very excited by these contributions to the ecosystem, and yeah. If you have any ideas on how we can extend Flux, please reach out to us. We also offer a Go SDK for you to build your own controllers that extend Flux. And yeah, check out our documentation. For any issues, we have a Slack channel on CNCF Slack. It's called Flux. Yeah, please join our community to try out Flux.
Very awesome.
Yeah, since Detroit, Rook has had a new release. We've had the 1.11 release. A lot of that has just been increasing the stability of Rook. Some of the new features that we've been working on have been almost kind of old features. We're seeing a lot more larger enterprises interested in like migration paths, including NFS in their organization. So we're trying to really round out the NFS support for security there. We also have some additional support that we're expecting to roll in for our upcoming release, which should be around July, for object storage and treating object storage more like file or block storage in Kubernetes today, where you can make a container object storage claim for I want a bucket, and it will just give you a bucket that you can use with your application. I mean, that's one of my pet projects, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, always just looking to keep up with stuff and make sure that it's as stable as we can make it. Yeah, you can contribute. We have rook.io is our website. Look on there. That'll get you any quick start, getting started guides. That's our Slack channel. Probably the best place to reach out is the Slack channel. Just, hey, how can I contribute? Or you can go to GitHub, and we try our best to mark beginner pull requests, and some of those are very small, like Go code related things. Some of them are documentation or testing. But yeah, really, we welcome anyone to come and ask questions and contribute. It's always a pleasure.
All righty. Well, we are KubeVirt, and in case you don't know, KubeVirt is running virtual machines natively alongside Kubernetes. In the last 6 months, we've added a bunch of new adopters to our adopter file, which you can find in KubeVirt adopters.md. We've got a range of features. but I'd also like to point to the fact that we've introduced a SIG release team in repo, which allows us to have a one source of truth for our upcoming schedule. We've also matched the Kubernetes release schedule, release cadence, which means that we're now releasing, well, it's still new, so we're lagging about 12 to 15 weeks behind Kubernetes, but we are now tied to the most recent Kubernetes release, and our SIG release team also enables us to have a milestones and potential roadmap for upcoming features, and a place to, as everyone's very excited about release notes, a place to make more comprehensive and better release notes. So if you ever want to know what features have been updated every 6 to 12 months, you don't have to listen to me give a talk to a camera. You can just check our release notes and just see these features are what I want. Drop by KubeVirt community, you'll find our socials, 2 Slack channels in the Kubernetes workspace, our community meeting calendar, and our mailing list. Join us, we'd love to see you. And if you use KubeVirt, please let us know. We'd love to talk to you. If you're interested in KubeVirt, do the same. Just pop up, ask a question. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Hey, my name is Jonathan Berkhahn, and I'm a maintainer and chair for Operator Framework. So Operator Framework is a CNCF project that creates and maintains several tools for creating, writing, upgrading, deploying, testing Kubernetes operators. So Kubernetes operators are an architectural design pattern for writing applications that run on top of Kubernetes. So if you've ever written an app that runs on top of Kubernetes, you're probably familiar with, you have an application that's comprised of deployments and pods and services that you deploy on top of the cluster and they run there. If you do that statically though, via just creating them manually yourself, and let's say one of your pods falls over, Kubernetes will restart it for you, but depending on what's running in that pod, that may or may not actually help. If there's a database running in that deployment, maybe when the pod comes back up, it needs to be resynced with the cluster, and it's not going to be functionally useful until that happens. And if you're just statically deploying it, there's no way for that to happen automatically. So the idea of an operator is to contain that domain-specific knowledge that's specific to your application into Kubernetes itself so that it can handle your application the way it needs to. Now, the usual way this is accomplished is by making an operator that consists of 2 parts, a custom resource definition and an accompanying controller. You're probably familiar with the custom resource definition. It lets you add a new resource type to a cluster. The controller, a little bit more finicky. So Kubernetes itself is actually already comprised of a bunch of controllers underneath the hood. They're the processes that are sitting there watching the etcd and are waiting for changes to happen. When you instantiate a pod that really just writes a line to the database, and then the pod controller is sitting there waiting, looking for that to happen, and then when it sees a new request comes in, it goes and makes that happen somewhere on the cluster. So we're going to write a controller for your CRD type that has your specific knowledge of what making your thing means. Like going back to our database example, if I'm going to make a database type, I write a controller that says, okay, if a pod falls over and it comes back up, it needs to be resynced before it can reconnect to the cluster, or something like that. So you contain that domain-specific knowledge in the controller so that Kubernetes knows how to provision and manage your resource for you. So we make a bunch of tools to make that easier. Our 2 primary products are a CLI called Operator SDK, which is a tool for generating and scaffolding operators, and then a package manager called Operator Lifecycle Manager, which is a package manager for operators. So you take an operator that you wrote with Operator SDK, you can create a bundle for it, upload that to OLM, and then use that to deploy and upgrade your operator over time. And then we have a bunch of smaller projects for testing operators in various ways, things like that. Yeah, so that's what we make. Big stuff going on right now. We actually are just having a third-party project. The Java Operator SDK folks are joining Operator Framework as an official sub-project. So we recently added support for Java as a fully supported language in Operator SDK, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, we're always looking for new contributors. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, feel free to drop us a line. I think we're at Operator SDK Dev on KubeSlack is probably the best place to check us out. But yeah, thanks.
Okay, hi, welcome to the Knative. We want to give you some update from the last KubeCon. We have been working hard on making sure that Knative is suitable for more production workloads. Right now, the latest release is 1.9. We're working on improving the security aspects of Knative. You can have now mutual TLS part of the Knative. In eventing also there is a lot of work happening on making sure that eventing features are more rich in terms of being suitable for consolidating some of the aspects like a Kafka source or Kafka broker and Kafka channel being part of the more integrated component that work well together with more optimization. And Knative serving has been very mature in terms of API. We are also working now with, there is now functions where you can use a very interesting development experience with the KN Func CLI. You can do things like create a function as a service directly from the code into a Knative service. Where also there is a lot of work happening in the Knative security working group. We're also welcoming any feedback from the community because we're seeing a lot of interest since it was donated to CNCF. So yeah, stop by our Slack. We are on the Knative channel in Slack CNCF, and see you there.
Right. Hello everyone, I'm Lennart Jern. I'm one of the maintainers of MetalCube. The last, let's say, year or so, we have been up to quite a lot of focus on documentation. We have a book-like copy that we try to fill out. It's not finished. It's documentation ever. Yeah, we keep working on that. There were some talks about bare metal energy efficiency, for example. We have also been experimenting with scaling. That's a lot of that going on in both in the copy community and also in MetalCube. We try to make sure that we can scale this to thousands of nodes or even thousands of clusters. So
how easy is it to get a copy provider on-prem now?
how easy is it to get this one? Yeah. I guess the hardest part is getting started, since you need to understand something about ironic and it's hardware. You can't skip that part. You cannot just snap your fingers and get a VM. So yeah, that's probably the hard part. It's a bit steep learning curve with that, and we try to improve. But after that, you get cluster API. You just put your templates in, and there you go. Right, we are on the Kubernetes Slack. We have well, Twitter, we have GitHub, of course. Join our community meetings, please, every Wednesday. Adam is the host most of the time, so yeah, check us out.